All right. My name is Samin Saodat. I'm the executive director and founder of Jalapeno Employee Engagement. I have worked on several projects on developing and cultivating a diverse, equitable, inclusive workplace as well as agile workplace. And I have a strong background in psychology, so I've worked in different research labs in psychology at the University of British Columbia. And the approach I'm taking is really, first, we need to define the problem. First, we need to allocate resources to figure out what our problem is before thinking about the solution. Because if we don't know that, the solution is becoming a painkiller and useless. And that's the only way we can figure out where to invest for highest ROI. And that's the approach I'm taking in this presentation when you're thinking about DEI and agile transformation within your organization and in mining industry. The agenda we have here is that we're going to discuss how humans interact with each other. We're going to have a new definition of DEI and agile, not a new definition, but looking at the definition through a new lens, discussing where we go wrong when it comes to these two concepts. And also we will be taking action right now at the end of this presentation toward the real transformation. All right, so you'll be hearing a sound soon, and I want you to try to see what you hear. Okay, so if this is new to you, if you've never done this research before, it's going to be vague. Let's try again. Okay, well, now let's hear another sound and see what we understand from this sound.
I think Brexit is a really terrible idea. I think Brexit is a really terrible idea.
Okay, now I want you to hear to the first sound again and see what has changed for you.
I think Brexit is a really terrible idea.
Okay, so now it actually makes sense. So really what it shows that our brain uses the existing information to make sense of the world around us, especially if it's a recent information. And the reason brain does that, because brain gets extremely uncomfortable when it's in an uncertain, not so familiar environment. And it uses constantly any information, any resources it has to try to make sense of whatever is being exposed to it. And there was this research was done that they find out that the most mental taxing phase for your brain is when you're uncertain. What that means is your brain burns more glucose when it's in an uncertain state. So therefore, your brain does everything it can to be more certain about whatever is processing. Now let's do one more. I'm just gonna, what is this? Right, let's look at this one.
Ba ba, ba ba, ba ba.
So I want you to just repeat what you hear.
Ba ba, ba ba, ba ba.
Now let's try another one.
Ba ba, ba ba, ba ba. 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 Ba ba, 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 ba ba.
So this is another example that shows how
Ba ba, ba.
how our brain actually processes information. So again, it uses all senses, all the resources it has just to be able to make sense of the world around that. And you can just picture how someone's look, someone's accent, face, body language, color, how they look can actually impact the information we're receiving from them. Now let's do one more to learn more about how our brain functions. Just 1 second. All right, you have only 2 seconds to address this. All roses are flowers. Some flowers fade quickly. Therefore, some roses fade quickly. Is this valid or invalid? You have only 2 seconds. We have done this many times, and majority of people said this is valid. But when you actually think it twice, when you read it a few times, all the roses are flowers. Sure, that's true. Some flowers fade quickly. I mean, that's true too. Therefore, some roses fade quickly. Is that really true? Maybe all roses fade quickly. Maybe none of the roses fade quickly. We don't know. So this is another way to think about how our brain processes the information. Our brain has the tendency to pick few information and generalize it to the entire context. The reason it likes doing that because it helped us to survive during Homo sapien times. First of all, it really helps to build more certainty. It helps to build more familiarity, and this is what brain loves doing it, just because it's more comfortable for the brain. And second of all, imagine during Homo sapien times, when there was something moving in the bush, you needed to treat this as a threat because that could be a tiger and run. You don't really have the luxury of pausing and thinking about, is that a tiger? Should I think twice? I mean, if you think twice and if by any chance that's a tiger, you're dead. So you have to quickly run and save yourself. However, we don't live in such a world anymore. And our brain functionality doesn't serve its purpose as much as it used to in the past. So every time we rely on that reactive, fast thinking, that's when we use our system one thinking, which is fast, is automated, is intuitive, is error-prone, reactive, and it is slow effort, really. It doesn't take much of our mental resources to use this thought process. However, when we pause and we pause system one thinking and think twice, that's when we start our system two thinking, which is slow and deliberate, analytical and rational. It's more reliable, more proactive, and it takes a lot of high effort. It takes a lot of mental resources. And you will notice most of the disagreements or the fights happen at the end of the night or early in the morning between couples. You notice most of the advertising happens at night because it's much easier to get you to be reactive and buy things you don't need. You will notice most of the frustration, sort of distraction or destructive behavior happens towards the end of a very long meeting. That's when the brain gets a little bit more tired and becomes more reactive. So as the world becomes more complex, and that complexity is due to mobilization, is due to advancement in technology, it's due to globalization, really. We are dealing with more complex problems. And what do I mean by that? You know, we have three types of problems. Some problems are simple. You just need to follow instructions, a precise instruction, and then if you follow that, you will get your desired outcome, which is like baking a cake. Some problems are complicated. It means it takes a lot of resources and time and effort to come up with a formula to resolve it. But once you find that, you can use the same formula and apply it to so many similar problems. What that means is, like, one example is like sending a rocket into the space. It's really hard, but really once you find the formula for it, you can just apply that formula and send 100 rockets to space. Some problems are complex. It means there is no instruction, there is no standard formula, and what works for one case does not necessarily work for the next case. And one simple example that might resonate with a lot of you is parenting. You can have 2 kids and the 3rd kid comes, you feel like, by now I should be experienced how to raise this kid. And then you notice that you're the whole new parent for the 3rd kid, that really everything you learned about the past one not necessarily applied to the new one. And these are the type of problem we face more often these days in today's problem and in workforce. And with this increase in complexity, we see an increased themes of Agile and DEI in the news. Agile transformation at mining, diversity in global mining, diversity inclusion in mining, Agile mining. So these concepts are not new. These concepts, the research have been done, at least in the field of psychology, in these concepts from many, many years ago. But it becomes more visible. It becomes much needed as the complexity is increasing in the workforce. So DEI, in a work environment that cultivates DEI, they do it because there is a high diversity and they need to address that. They need to improve collaboration within a diverse group of people and the team so they can meet the client's needs at the end. And it requires a lot of continuous learning. Agile word is like you adapt this because you feel like the project you're working on has very frequent changes that you need to address, and you really need to improve collaboration within the team and being able to meet your clients' needs, and also requires continuous learning. So based on many training we have done on these 2 concepts over the last 10 years, really what we found ourselves doing is teaching them how to function in this cycle. Teaching them that, okay, you need to pause. Maybe you shouldn't use your system 1 thinking to make decisions. Let's reflect on system 2 thinking and use that to make decisions. And then maybe we should readjust our approach for this case, for this person, for this task. We don't know if it's going to work. Let's test it. And then we pause again to see if it's working or not. The question then is, what are the essential considerations for effectively operating within this cycle? What are the critical factors to take into account? And based on our work that we have done, and based on all the research that you will see in mining, it's really the need for communication skills, ability to think outside of the box, ability to learn, to adapt to new knowledge. It's become much more needed right now. You will see more research. Critical thinking, again, becomes the top skill that they need. The need for being able to use your system 2 thinking in the workforce. Critical thinking, reading comprehension, judgment, and decision making. Again, communication skills, planning, problem solving. So these are all the research has been done over the last few years in mining when they asked them what type of question you need, what type of skills do you need the most? So what are the challenges that prevent us from successfully implementing DEI and Agile practices in our organizations? The very first thing we notice is that when we mistake goal for strategy, to increase to embrace DEI in your workforce or being more agile is not a goal. It's not a goal to be able to increase women by 50% more in your workforce, as an example, or to become more agile. Your goal is really meet your clients' needs and increase profitability and really doing a good job in the industry you're doing. Your strategy is the approach you're taking to overcome the challenges. The challenge is that when you don't have a diverse pool to work with, that will help you with your projects. Your challenge is that you're following precise planning instructions that really allow you to really be adaptable to the changes of the project. And the approach you're taking to overcome those challenges is the strategy. So cultivating diverse, equitable, inclusive workplace or agile workplace is the strategy you're following. That would really help you to meet your goals. And if organizations don't see a challenge with achieving their goals, then they're not going to be very successful in implementing DEI because they don't really see this as a strategy. They feel like it's a goal that I must meet, and they don't even know why. The second thing is education system trains against these two concepts. Reflecting back on your education, you will notice that we were constantly encouraged, trained, and praised to follow instructions, which is the whole semester, the whole 3 months was planned for us. You need to follow these instructions to get this A at this time. You need to take this exam. You need to study this for the exam. So it was very rigid. And we were constantly being praised for having this answer, the solution. We never got encouraged or praised for really just asking good questions that maybe we don't know the answer, but these are the questions we should ask ourselves. And in the whole equitable and inclusive work environment, as well as agile, really what the skill is a powerful questioning, that what questions should we ask ourselves, what questions we don't have answer for, and we need to make sure we find the answer for it. The next one is the technology creates this false reality. Right now, we have access to more information, although technology can help us to be more globalized, but also it's helping us to be more polarized. What that means, it means if you believe that some flowers, some roses fade quickly, if that's what you really believe, you can really find those information on the internet and validate your false assumption. Or another thing is if there are a lot of information about you that, you know, you're traveling to this place or this is how you do things, the whole information around you is this is how you should do things, rather than being encouraged to, all right, pause and see if this is really what you want to do. And the next thing is lack of focus on building the software. What that means in the nature of our work, we always say we need to build the software, which is the culture, the thought process, the human behavior within the organization, and also the hardware, which is the processes, the system, the documentation, the structure. There is a lot of emphasis on the software, that we need to make sure we work on the system, we work on the processes, which are important. Having said that, if the software is not functioning, then how the hardware is going to be very helpful. So the approach we are taking is that, let's build the software, let's make sure the software is functional, and then let's use the hardware to scale this software, to really back up this software. And what that means, it means let's just first make sure that we can interact on a one-on-one basis very well. If we can do that, then let's use processes, template structure to replicate it to the entire organization. Now we're going to do that at this presentation. So what we noticed, the very first step of this transformation is to really work on how we're collecting data, how our brain collects data, because if you don't train your brain to collect valid and reliable data, then everything else you do after that is going to be problematic for you because your data is not even correct. So the very first thing is for us to literally listen to understand. So really train ourselves to listen without criticizing, what we're reading or hearing, without even praising it, without even trying to reply to it, without even trying to find an answer for it. So the activity we really get everyone to do is we want to ask people to get into the group of two. One becomes opinion sharer, one becomes opinion listener. For the first 5 minutes, the opinion sharer will discuss their opinion on the following topic. What is the appropriate balance between environmental protection and economic development in mining? How can mining regulations and policies ensure that this balance is achieved? You can replace this with any questions that is more relevant to your topic. During this time, the opinion listener cannot express their opinion whatsoever. Instead, they can engage in an empathetic listening to understand the perspective of the opinion sharer by asking probing questions to gain a better understanding. So your brain is just going to constantly think about good questions to ask rather than a good response to give. You can ask questions such as, can you tell me more about that? Can you provide me with some more details? How would you describe your thought process behind this? You need to avoid asking why questions and replace it with what or how question. Because every time you ask a why question, it gets the person defensive. And you want to sort of have a more curious question rather than confrontational question. And then another thing you can do to paraphrase, to confirm your understanding. For example, it sounds like you prefer to do this because of X, Y, Z. What I hear is you prefer to do this because of X, Y, Z. Is that right? And then after 5 minutes, you switch roles. We have done this in many trainings, and we noticed that how everyone feels understood, how everyone's are more open to new knowledge, how they're open to look at things differently, and also having a more constructive conversation. And most importantly, collecting valid and reliable data that you can make decision and judgment. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Samin Saadat. I'm the Executive Director of Jalapeno Employee Engagement. You can reach out to me through samin@jalapeno.app, and our website is jalapeno.app. Thank you.